Welcome back to the big story about the Supreme Court now saying that they are willing to revisit the Section 377 that criminalizes gay sex. And India Today, in fact, has got all the details of what the Supreme Court said while admitting a plea to review Section 377 that presently, in its present form, criminalizes homosexuality. Supreme Court issues a notice to the centre on a petition that seeks to decriminalize consensual sex between LGBT adults. The court seeks the centre's response to a writ petition filed by 5 members belonging to the community who said that they live in fear because of the police, because of their natural sexual orientation and preferences as well. So a very important bit of news coming in there with the Supreme Court now revisiting Section 377 to hear LGBT activists also review Section 377. Anusha Sonia, a legal correspondent, is with us. Now, Anusha, what's interesting is that in 2014, the Supreme Court had in fact declared Section 377 as illegal and saying that it will continue to be an offence. And then in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, sometime in August, you had the Supreme Court once again tearing into its own judgment, which just goes on to show how important the subject is and how even different benches have different opinions on this matter.
That's right, Avantika. And as we've been speaking of that, this is an issue where morality has a large role to play. I must mention one of the observations that was made during the hearing today by a bench led by Chief Justice Deepak Mishra. He said that, what is the natural course and what is the interpretation of a natural phenomena changes from day and age. And there are progressive interpretations which keep on coming. What the court wants to say is that what is a natural sexual instinct and what is not. It's not a judgment which is static, it changes with time. And one should have a progressive mindset which allows individuals to make their own choices. These 5 members of the LGBT community have pleaded before the court that they live in constant fear and intimidation. They argue that with this section into being, they fear for their lives, and at the same time they cannot live and practice their own natural instincts, sexual instincts, and that has been criminalized. Clearly pointing out how it's a violation of right to equality, life and dignity, well-protected rights under the Indian Constitution.
Absolutely. So then what happens from here on? Because the Supreme Court also wanted the legislature to take a decision on this matter. They, in fact, wanted the Parliament to decide on Section 377 to get rid of this archaic law, wanting really to judiciary to interfere. But now with this big news coming in, what can we expect on a day-to-day basis?
So, Avantika, with the judiciary, it's often a long wait. Even with this new petition coming up, one needs to see when can a bench be set up. Sometimes it's a matter, it can happen immediately. There is no time frame which has been prescribed so far. So the Supreme Court will have to set up a larger bench, hopefully a 5-judge bench. As you were pointing out, Justice Thakur has said that we need a 5-judge bench on this matter. So that bench needs to be set up. A hearing of day-to-day needs to happen. As of now, on a day-to-day life of an LGBT community, the person just has more hope now with the Supreme Court re-looking at it. But nothing changes on ground till the Supreme Court takes a re-look and pronounces the final judgment. The earlier judgment of 2014, however criticized it may be, stays on. And 377 is valid unless Parliament intervenes. Now, with the Supreme Court looking into it, it's very likely that the Parliament will wait for the Supreme Court to hear this matter and then, legislate afresh on this entire thing. Because, as I was pointing out, 377 has a lot of other uses as well, other than criminalizing homosexuality. So
all right, Anusha.
Will have to be replaced.
Oh, absolutely. I am going to continue speaking to you, but we just have to take a very short break right now. Stay tuned. We'll be back with the story and we'll get more reactions in a bit. Okay, so we've just received breaking news about the Supreme Court observing societal morality changes with time, law walks with life. Very interesting, information there coming in from the Apex Court with the section of people can't live in fear or their individual choice. Supreme Court expressing its views on the matter of Section 377 that in its present form criminalizes homosexuality. Supreme Court issuing a notice to the centre seeking its response to the writ petition that has been filed by 5 members of the LGBT community who claim that they live in fear of police because of their natural sexual orientation and preferences. We have Abha Singh right now joining us on the broadcast. Good afternoon, ma'am. Thanks so much for speaking to us. Big news coming in there from the Supreme Court, willing to reopen the debate on Section 377, and some interesting observations from the Apex Court saying that societal morality changes with time, law walks with life.
Exactly, it is definitely a very important day because Supreme Court is realizing that by overturning or putting a stay to the Delhi High Court order, which had decriminalized 377 of the IPC, it had somewhere erred, because now with changing times, you have to accept that it's a position, your sexual preferences are positions which are concerned by birth, or it's your personal choice, and court should not make it a criminal offense, because the imprisonment is 10 years to life, which is very major offense. It is being treated when it is not so. And also now the court knows that the police is using this 377 IPC to knock off money, and people are living in fear.
Yes.
So I think it's a great day for human rights and equality, and also for the Constitution, that we are treating everybody, including the LGBT community, as a citizen and as an equal citizen of this country.
Very important point there, ma'am. These observations by the Supreme Court today in the new year in 2018 also flies in the face of a December 2013 Supreme Court ruling that recriminalized homosexuality. So it's interesting, you know, you have these two judgments, these observations in 2013, then in 2017, and the day that we are talking of today.
Exactly, it shows that judiciary also at times can err, because it was really a shocking day for lawyers like us who handle human rights cases, that how could Supreme Court overturn such a progressive order of Delhi High Court, which had declared 377 as null and void. It had decriminalized LGBT offences, but the Supreme Court at that time, so one cannot comment per se because it would be contempt, but I still feel I'm happy that Supreme Court judges are realizing that the earlier order was very regressive, and they are ready to relook their own order.
But ma'am, you're talking about the Delhi High Court. Even the Supreme Court, if you remember, in December 2013, I think it was 11th of December, I may be wrong there on the dates, but even the Supreme Court held that homosexuality or unnatural sex between two consenting adults is going to be illegal and will continue to be an offense, you know, under the IPC.
In fact, in fact, before that, Delhi High Court order had given a progressive order saying that it is not an offense. So that Delhi High Court order was overturned by Supreme Court by this 11 December. That is what I'm saying. It is where the judges had erred.
Yes.
And I'm happy that the Supreme Court has realized its mistake, because in today's world, when what goes on within four walls of your own house is your privacy, right to privacy, which was being violated. And if now Supreme Court is revisiting it, it is a landmark judgment, not a landmark idea itself, not only for the LGBT community, but for everybody in general who felt that we were allowing the law and police to enter our bedrooms, which is absolutely wrong.
Yes, and before today, the Supreme Court even tore into its own 2014 verdict on Section 377. If you remember the 9-judge Constitution bench observations, ma'am, what does one make of different benches, varying opinions, different verdicts, different observations on this contentious matter? Because at one time, the Supreme Court also didn't wanted the judiciary to interfere, leaving it up to the legislature or the parliament to take a call on Section 377.
Exactly, but Supreme Court now has realized that the government is not going to take major decisions, because even in triple talaq, in fact, when the court declared it instant triple talaq illegal and null and void, it said, why are you using our shoulders for issues which should be legislated in the parliament? But now Supreme Court realizes that the Parliament is not going to overturn 377, and as an apex court which has always upheld the Constitution, and when the Constitution talks of equality before law, how are we violating Article 14? How are we violating Article 15, which prohibits discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste or sex? and here because of the third gender we were discriminating against them. So now the Supreme Court knows that it will uphold the Constitution, and it knows that the government, because of political reasons, will not come forward. So I think it is trying to undo the wrong which it did by its earlier order. And regarding your question where you say it is, even we as lawyers feel that from the lower court a different order comes, High Court absolutely overturns it, and then one goes to the Supreme Court. So definitely a totally different order comes out. So these are the things which really need to be standardized, because the charge sheet has to be standardized, and the judges should not give such absolutely different orders.
Right, ma'am. We leave it at that. Thank you so much. We also have with us on the phone line senior lawyer Mahesh Jethmalani joining us on the broadcast. Good afternoon, sir. Thanks so much. Your initial reactions on this big news coming in from the Supreme Court wanting to revisit the 2013 decision on homosexuality.
Well, I wholeheartedly welcome it. I think it's a progressive step. I think it's a step in the right direction, and I hope the agony and the apprehensions of the LGBT community will finally be put to rest by a larger court judgment. But that's for the future.
That's for the future. But, sir, there have been varying opinions and observations and even verdicts with regards to Section 377 that criminalizes homosexuality in its form. We saw what happened in December 2013. And then, you know, the court taking up this matter once again in 2017. And now again, we're seeing the court wanting to revisit this issue. Do you think that the observations made today by the Apex Court flies in the face of the 2013 Supreme Court ruling that had recriminalized homosexuality?
Well, it's a cause for optimism for those who want to decriminalize, homosexuality and, lesbianism and transgender rights. But having said that, it's only a relook, so one has to see which way the larger bench goes. And as for there being opposition to it, this is a diverse country, so there are bound to be various hues of opinion. But speaking for myself, yes. I hope the 2013 judgment is finally laid to rest and LGBT rights are recognized.
That's interesting. You mentioned that. And one last question, Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani. Can you just explain this, that what happens after today? I mean, if you could just put things in context, will the Supreme Court be willing to hear the views by LGBT activists or other organizations who have been fighting for the cause? Do you think that this issue needs to be raised to a 5-judge bench and they should be the ones who should be listening to the matter once it's re-looked into?
Well, yes, I mean, it has to be before a larger bench because a smaller bench of the Supreme Court has set its face against striking down 377 in respect of, gay rights. So it has to be before a larger bench. And as I said, the fact that the Chief Justice has said they will have a relook at the previous judgment, and particularly in the context of right of privacy judgment, which in passing had alluded to gay rights. I think there's plenty of cause for optimism that a larger bench may have a different view than the 2-judge bench of 2013.
All right, we leave it at that, Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani. Thank you so much for joining us. So many lawyers there speaking to us, noted lawyers, welcoming the observations of the Supreme Court to re-look the 2013 decision that criminalizes homosexuality. We have with us right now Manohar on the broadcast. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Your reactions on this big news, lawyers across saying that they welcome it and that there is plenty of opportunity for LGBT activists to cheer about, to be optimistic, to be hopeful that this section that criminalizes homosexuality will be done with once and for all. Manohar, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, it's a very welcome step. It's a long overdue.
Okay.
And we welcome this comments. And, 377 is not just about homosexuality and not just about LGBT community. It is about human rights of all people.
While you welcome it, Manohar, let me also just get in noted lawyer Subramaniam Swamy, who's joining us on the broadcast. Sir, good afternoon. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Your initial reactions on the Supreme Court observations, expressing its willingness to revisit its own 2013 decision of criminalizing homosexuality.
Well, there's no harm revisiting it, but the government position at that time is unchanged, and so it will be hotly contested. So let the court decide what is constitutional, what is not constitutional.
Right, so but what do you make of Section 377, your own personal views? I just spoke to Mr. Mahesh
My personal views is,
yes.
Go ahead. My personal views are the same as that of the government, that I consider homosexuality as a genetic flaw and it's not normal behavior, but people should not be discriminated. They are born with this disability. And they should be given equal rights with all others as far as employment and in social circumstances. But to celebrate it, which is what these gay sex types are wanting to do, open gay bars, and flaunt their homosexuality as if it is normal, that we oppose, and we'll make that criminal.
But sir, if I can just take you through what the Supreme Court is saying, and there are many who argue that the section, the law is obsolete, it's archaic. Supreme Court observing that societal morality changes with time, law walks with life. These are the kind of observations by the Apex Court.
Who has made that remark? What is the name of the judge? Or is it the Chief Justice who said it? You see, the issue is that you can't prejudice the debate in the future.
Right.
When matters heard, courts can make observations, but the courts have made it very clear observations mean nothing.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for your time. We also have the lawyer of the LGBT community, Anand Grover, joining us on the broadcast. Good afternoon. Thank you so much. I have been getting varying opinions, Mr. Grover, on the decision of the Supreme Court to revisit its own 2013 decision on homosexuality. Now, interestingly, noted lawyers like Abha Singh and Mahesh Jethmalani have welcomed it, saying that there is plenty to cheer about, there's plenty to be optimistic. But Subramaniam Swamy, very interestingly, saying that this issue will be contested when it arises in the Apex Court. Your thoughts?
Well, today actually another petition has been filed, and it has been notice has been issued, and the Chief Justice said that we'll hear the matter before the larger bench.
Yes.
So it will be tagged along. The most important indication is the judges will take it up. And in my opinion, once they take it up, there's no choice but for the judges to decide in our favor.
Okay, so are you saying that this is also a welcome sign that the Supreme Court is going to be taking it up and the matter just could be referred to a higher bench as well?
Well, it was already referred to a constitutional bench, which is 5 judge.
Yes.
So this will be tagged along. But the good thing is that they have indicated that they'll be hear the matter quickly.
Okay, and how hopeful are you that the Supreme Court will give its ruling on the criminality part of Section 377 that criminalizes homosexuality? Because this issue has been going on for a long time now.
Well, things take time because the law has been there for more than 150 years. So we don't mind fighting for another 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Of course, we've been fighting for the last decade. But I think that the indication is that we'll hear it. And as I said earlier, because of the wrong decision, coupled with the fact that privacy ruling also mentioned that the Kaushal judgment, that is the Supreme Court judgment, did not appreciate the privacy ruling.
Yes.
I think we have a very, very, very good case.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Anand Grover. So, Mr. Anand Grover, the lawyer for the LGBT community, representing them in the Supreme Court, very hopeful and saying that they have a very strong case when it comes up for hearing in the Apex Court. So, a big news coming in there by the Apex Court, the Supreme Court, now willing to revisit its 2013 decision, the decision that held that homosexuality or unnatural sex between two consenting adults under Section 377 of the IPC is illegal and will continue to be an offence. But Supreme Court today observing that societal morality changes with time, law walks with life, is something that has given hope to several LGBT activists and Mr. Anand Grover as well. Manohar continues to remain with us. Manohar, I'm sorry I had to interrupt you there because we just had so many reactions of eminent lawyers coming in there. But if you could just continue from where you left, are you hopeful that, you know, the day will arrive that Section 377 that presently criminalizes homosexuality will be once and for all done away with, because there are several who, claim that it's an archaic law, it's obsolete, it needs to be done with, but a decision that also has to be taken by the legislature in Parliament for it to be done away with entirely.
Yeah, I'm very, very hopeful. Also in the context of actually privacy judgment, where many judges made comments about how the decriminalization of sex between consenting adults goes against right to privacy of people. I'm very, very hopeful that we'll get rid of it. And of course, people like Criminalising can entail to their views. He also has some really quite horrible views when it comes to the largest religious minority of this country. And also, we can't expect any radical things from our Parliament, because Parliament is filled with people who are actually quite old and who hold very
but did you get a chance to hear Mr. Subramanian Swamy? I mean, he just spoke to us on the broadcast wherein he said that, this, when it arises, will also be vigorously contested in the Supreme Court by the government.
I'm not sure about that. See, one thing is that while Subramanian Swamy can hold this view, but the view from BJP seems to be that not very different from what it was before, saying that they are not taking any stand on it, this side or that side. They seem to be asking court to settle it. That seems to be the official position, or they seem to have the official position. Arun Jaitley publicly said that criminalization is not right. And even Ram Madhav, I think when he joined BJP, or just before joining BJP, also said that criminalization is not okay. So I don't think BJP has a very clear position on the issue. That's my understanding of the situation. And anyway, political parties tend to be conservative. They're very worried about the votes.
Yes. But you sound confident, you sound hopeful, and this observation, this information from the Supreme Court is coming after a petition was filed by a section of people who claim that, their lives have become absolutely miserable. I mean, they are living in constant fear. They're often targeted. They're also, feeling a sense of threat. They're intimidated. They're bullied by policemen after, the Supreme Court ruling, the 2013 verdict.
Yes, every day people are suffering. In fact, recently the transgenders actually in Kerala were booked under some case. In that case, they said it is both sex work provisions as well as 377. It's very, very real, and also having 377 prevents LGBT community from getting any other rights, because you don't get recognized as a citizen because it's criminalized. And that hopefully that will change, and I'm sure that the judges will go by constitutional morality.
Have you witnessed such incidents, or have you known of people who have been intimidated, or who have been unnecessarily threatened by the police, and who have openly misused Section 377 for their own vested gains?
Yeah, almost 20 years ago, I started Sangama, 1999 in Bangalore. We used to get so many cases of abuse by police, blackmail by gundas, physical attacks, suicides. They've reduced to some level now in places like Bangalore, where a lot of activism has taken place.
Okay.
But abuse still continues in many other places. Even in Bangalore, it continues. And LGBT people don't get the full human rights because of this. Like even transgenders, when they got the judgment, they get many other rights to the judgment, but nothing about their sexuality,
All right. Thank you so much for joining us and speaking to us. Rahul Ishwar also joins us for his reactions on this big news. How do you respond? A big news coming in from the Supreme Court, willing to revisit, to relook the 2013 decision that, homosexuality in India is illegal and is a crime.
As a responsible right-leaning activist, I agree more with the earlier Supreme Court verdict, which says, let us not criminalize and apply it, but let it remain in the statute books. See, India is a very family-oriented society where we have many notions regarding marriage, sexuality, human relationships. So any person will have natural inhibitions when such a thing arises.
Yes.
And apart from the cultural aspect, one more thing is there. Even scientific community is yet to come to a decisive conclusion regarding homosexuality as a birth orientation. There are many studies which calls it a deviant behavior. I wouldn't ever use the word disease or deformity, but at the same point of time, even many scientists who have investigated regarding this matter calls it a deviant behavior, which is even expressed in the animal kingdom. So we should go very slowly. There's an evolving jurisprudence and evolving opinion in this. Even in the right-wing spectrum, there are many people who are having various opinions. But at the same point of time, this should be taken very slowly, and Supreme Court should also take into account the scientific aspects, not only the ideological, liberal, feminist.
So it's a fine line one has to toe, isn't it, Rahul Ishwar? You have people's sensitivities, you have, age-old traditions that are being practiced in India, but you also have the right to privacy, which is a fundamental right. And, you had the 9-judge Constitution bench also holding right to privacy as a fundamental right and denouncing discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation.
Absolutely. That's a policy call which the Supreme Court will have to make. On one hand, there is a 9-member bench who held the right to privacy is absolutely non-compromisable. And on the other side, there is an earlier Supreme Court verdict which says, let us take it very slow, let us not apply the criminal sections, but let it remain in the statute books. Supreme Court will have to find a very fine balance between these things.
Yes.
And even though we concede that this is a private matter, but at the same point of time, sexual orientation being a by-birth orientation, that whole idea is being contested on many spheres, including science. Let us not forget it. Let us take it slow. Let us not jump to conclusions in the name of progressivism and liberalism.
Right, Rahul Ishwar, just kindly stay on with me.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.